Wait, you didn't know I spoke another language?
No. This whole time.
Surprise, I speak Mandarin. You speak... What do you speak?
English.
You speak English? Your parents never spoke something else to you?
No.
But your mom is...
My mom is Vietnamese and Okinawan, and my dad's Filipino, but they both only speak English.
Oh, well, I guess they speak English to each other, do they?
Yeah, yeah. But they, like, grew up never knowing anything else.
Yeah. Oh, well. Surprise!
I love that, which also makes a lot more sense in terms of, like, your ability to replicate noises and, like, sounds and like things like that. So, yeah, lots of context clues that I never noticed originally, but now it makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. Well, I mean, I feel like it's so fitting that you're my first guest because I feel like so much of my vocal journey or just my journey expressing myself with my voice has been so supported through our lesson. So hello, everyone who is here in this moment with me and with Elise. Welcome to Spiraling Within. That's what this is. We're spiraling within this present moment, and we're just going to see what arises. And so I'm Pei-Ling, and I'm with... Do you want to share your name?
Elise. Yeah.
Elise, yeah.
I'm Elise.
Elise. And yeah, Elise, we connected, it was October of 2019 when I had this inkling. My inner child was like, I want to sing and I want to feel confident about my voice. And so I found a studio in San Francisco where we both were at the time, which neither of us are there now. And honestly, it was just, I feel so grateful that the divine alignment that I was connected with you out of all of the different teachers at the studio that we connected. And the rest is history. It's been like weekly-ish lessons for, what is it, two and a half years now.
Yeah, like this will be our third year?
Yeah.
Crazy, yeah. And I just have seen your voice grow so much and you grow so much over those last like 2.5 years or so. But yeah, it's so funny how from just something so seemingly like outwardly simple, like voice lessons can lead us here to a place where we're having such deep, like meaningful connection. And I feel like in our lessons, they're never just, let's do some warm-ups. It's always like something a little bit deeper and a little bit more. And I love it. And I've loved our lessons because of it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that I can say the exact same about you of just witnessing your evolution, both in terms of, I think what's been really cool is that we've been kind of like evolving alongside one another, and the way that our lessons and our sessions together, even what's included in them, the fact that like energy and emotion and movement, all of those things are included and woven in. Yeah, it's just really special. It's special and that's what I love about connecting with people who we get to kind of journey alongside. It's like a co-creative relationship where we're just like support. It's like really a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just excited and I'm honored to be your first guest. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, because you have a podcast too.
Oh, yes, we haven't recorded an episode in a while, but yes, I have my podcast that I co-founded, AZN Coffee Co. We just essentially like highlight Asian grown coffee and Asian voices that are in the specialty coffee industry. So outside of music, I also really enjoy the coffee side of creativity. And I'm competing next week, actually, in Boston. Week. It's crazy. It's so... This morning I was working on my script and I just am nervous and semi-prepared, but excited. And yeah, I'm just excited to like represent all these things and all this like community and like ancestry and like this coffee.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me next week. But yeah, my podcast is AZN Coffee Co. So if you're interested in coffee, please check it out.
Yeah, and your coffee competition is national and it's streamed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be streaming on Facebook Live, I think. So
what date is it?
I'll send it to you. It is over the course of 2 days. So the first half of the competition will be on the 8th, or April 8th, and then the second part is on April 9th.
Well, this seems to be divine timing because we're gonna share this on the 6th, so perfect.
Oh my goodness. Incredible.
Yeah, the last time we spoke, we were kind of touching into your really two passion areas right now. Or would you, I guess it's kind of, yeah, it kind of feels like there definitely are bridges and things connecting them. But where are you with those, like your music and coffee?
Yeah, it's actually so funny that you bring this up, that this is kind of like manifesting right now, because I literally before, like on my drive back home before this, was thinking to myself like, man, I wish I had all the time in the world to just focus on these two passions. And I feel like I'm in this being backed into a corner to pick one, but I don't want to pick one. So, I don't know where I'm at right now with it, but I definitely am getting like fruitful blessings in both directions. So it feels like whichever way I'm being called will be in my favor and will like be something that I'm excited and like passionate about. So yeah, I don't know. One is more physically exhausting and the other is more emotionally exhausting. And I don't know which one is better.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what you're saying of each is offering fruitful blessings in each direction. It's kind of like life offers us that feedback where we're guiding ourselves in it, and as we follow, it's like, oh, there's a tree with an apple on it, let me like take a bite, and then maybe we get to a path and then it's like, oh, there are no more trees left, or it seems like there are no more apples left, or this orchard has reached its edge, and then we just like do a little turn and there's like apples, or maybe we're now going to pick some grapes in another direction. And yeah, I'm curious, you said it feels like you're kind of backed up into a corner. What do you feel like what's in that corner? Or like, what do you feel like is that energy?
Yeah, it kind of feels like I have something with music that I'm good at, and that's my wheelhouse and has been for the last X amount of years.
Yeah.
And feels like the normal route to go through. And I have my own private studio now, and like I'm a small business owner, and I actually haven't gotten to celebrate this with you yet, but I got my first someone completely random, no idea who this person is, scheduled an online consultation with me this coming week. And so it's like
so
exciting. Yeah, it's so exciting because it's like, oh my gosh, like this is growing beyond my inner circle now.
Yeah.
And it's requiring like internal organization from me and things like that. So, and I know, and voice coaching and guiding people through like a musical journey is something I feel incredibly confident in doing, and I enjoy doing that. But on the flip side, it's like I get personal satisfaction and gratification. Not that I don't with music, but I also continue to get like access to that creativity in a different capacity with coffee that I don't often do with teaching. And it's almost like the corner is like, do I choose others or do I choose myself? And I want to be able to do both. Yeah.
So in that, because I just like kind of had this vision of you literally in a corner.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I have a couple questions. What does that corner feel like to you? Like, are there walls to this corner?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have like a color or like what does that corner, what's that experience of being in that corner?
Yeah, I think if I really sit back and I close my eyes and I think about it, it actually feels like a corner where the walls are gray and there's only one like hanging light above that's like shining in that corner, and everything else before the two acute angle directions, like either it's this way 45 degrees or the other way 45 degrees.
Yeah.
Like, completely pitch black darkness of what's ahead. And but I know that either way, it's like, there's nothing behind me, right? Like it's just the corner behind me. And so there's nothing for me behind me, but there's either exits or other doors or whatever ahead of me. I just can't see it. But so it does feel like a little bit enclosing and claustrophobic, but it is like there's better things for me this direction, whichever direction that may be.
I'm curious, is the one light that's hanging, is it illuminating anything? Like, is anything lit up, or is the light just kind of shining above?
I think it's just kind of shining above. It's one of those very like film noir, old 1940s classic where it's like got that, I guess, I don't even know what to call it. Like the way that the sconce is like hanging around. Yeah. It's just the single like light chain and then the sconce around the like Edison bulb or kind of, it's very simple light. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can so relate to that in many ways, just like very parallel with your journey as well. And the whole like building, growing, establishing your business and just feeling the darkness of the unknown ahead of us. And it's just like that. The one light is just illuminating and it's just right here and right now. It's kind of, it really reminds me of, there's this card in the tarot called the Hermit. Yes. Yeah, the Hermit. That's what I'm recalling. And in the traditional Smith Rider-Waite imagery of the Hermit card, it's kind of a person in a cloaked hood. It's like in the dark, and then they're holding a lantern. And the lantern is really only illuminating the one step where it is, and then the rest is darkness. And it's kind of like that. It's like the taking it one step at a time, and each baby step is really what we have clarity of. It's like right now in this now moment, that you have your coffee competition next week, and that's lit up. You have students for like voice lessons, and that's lit up. What's actually held in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a year, that's the experience of the darkness.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I feel like the last 2 years, especially since pandemic, has been like, I'm too afraid to plan anything. And it's no longer the feeling of fear of planning anything, but it's really kind of like, wow, the world is my oyster. Like, I can go whichever direction and I can make it work now. So it's very hopeful, but it is also like, I don't want to just stay standing with my lantern in this one step. Like, I want to keep moving. Because there is nothing behind me. There is nothing for me behind me. So, I want to keep moving. But I don't know where to go.
Maybe right here. Maybe there's nowhere to go. Maybe, arriving right here and now is exactly where we're going. That reminds me of what you said, the corner. The other thing that came up as I was envisioning you in that is, it really reminds me of this wall. So this wall is south or southeast facing. And in feng shui, my qua number is, if I'm recalling, it's 3. But basically, this is kind of my, as they call my prosperous wall. And when I had a feng shui consultation with this wonderful feng shui master, Ailita, she recommended that I orient my desk this way so that my back is actually facing this wall, so that everything that supports me is behind me. And I really do, when I just like tune in myself to this wall and to having the wall behind me, it feels like such ancestral support. Like being, and we even, oh my gosh, we've done this in our voice lessons where you've invited me to literally lean against the wall. Leaning against the wall and feeling the support of the wall, and then immediately my voice just like opens, and it's really profound. And there's something about like leaning on the support of life, on the support of the wall. That's even something that we talk about in yoga teacher training, about in teaching in a trauma-informed way. One thing is inviting students to line up the mats against the wall so that you actually have the wall behind you supporting you. And that way what you see in front of you is the entire space. And so being in a corner, there's even like right now, I'm like literally sitting in a corner. There's a comfort to that. And being with those walls behind, I just see, because this is also something I connect often with womb space, as you know, and like our, like the two ovaries, it's kind of like those are these gateways, these portals to our lineage. And it's like I can see my father's lineage all extended out on one side and then mother's lineage on the other. And it's like those two walls, it's like you have your entire lineage of ancestors supporting you and holding you in from behind. And it's like, no, we're not going behind, but that support is there to hold us as we step forward. And it's kind of like the walls like move with us.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like, because to say that the walls are closing in feels wrong. And I think what's the claustrophobic feeling from earlier that I was describing is this, like, the darkness plus the walls. Yeah. But I think, like you're saying, yeah, they're not really, like, I'm not afraid of the walls. I'm afraid of the darkness. What's another interesting part about this too, like in my mind's eye, like in my vision of how I see this image against this corner, is I actually see it from like an aerial view. Like I'm not in the body looking out to the darkness. Like I'm above, like seeing the bigger picture. I
just feel that, yeah.
Which is good because it's comforting for me, because it's like ultimately there is a larger picture to be seen here. So it doesn't feel as encasing or as enclosing as I'm sure it would appear from that point of view. But yeah, but I like what you're saying about this ancestry, and it's so funny that you say this, which I think is a very like divine intervention, because I'm actually including that in my script and my performance for this coffee competition next week. It's just like talking about the ancestry of this coffee and like as an Asian American, like the ancestry I carry, and like, or the community that I carry of all the people who have allowed me to like be in that space and take up that space. And so I just think it's really poetic that you mentioned that, and I will also be like translating that too in my future performance. So yeah.
And also how fitting that our conversation began talking about ancestral languages.
Oh yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah, but I just want to go like what you said about the aerial view. That was so, oh my gosh, that's so potent. And I could feel the chills, because you know how you said that there is one light just right above. And it's like that light, because I can see from the awareness perspective of, you can see the light as well as the darkness, and you can see the walls. And the light is you. Like in some ways, the light is you. It's the light of your awareness that is shining upon the darkness in the walls. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And whether that source of illumination is, whatever it is for you that resonates, even if it's like the sun, or everyone has a different source of illumination or inspiration, but in the essence of it, at least in my experience, all the light that shines upon us is shining from within us as well. And that it's like you're guiding your own way. You're like, you're being like, Elise, here, this is where we are now. And then it's like your light is going to just continue to illuminate what is meant to be illuminated each moment.
Yeah, like even as you're describing this picture, where like I definitely feel like it's like I'm my own hermit, for lack of a better way of putting it. Like I'm the one holding the lantern above myself. Yeah. Being like, all right, when you're ready to move, I'll move the light too. And so I think that's really beautiful and fascinating as well. So, and I'm having these revelations like as we talk about them. So
Well, and the other thing, I think that zooming out as well is something that that really supports me in just existing, period, just like being with sensations, whether it's physical sensations or energy or emotion, anything, or even just being in a situation. That ability that we each have to expand our awareness and expand our consciousness, to take that like bird's eye view and really just kind of zoom out. It's that, like, in this moment, if we just zoom out our awareness and we're like, oh, we're these beings on this spinning globe planet out in the sky, and we're just here, and we're these seemingly tiny, like, little creatures that are just on this spinning globe out, and it's one of many, many infinite spinning globes. And yeah, it's like the momentary, any sensation, for example, like before we started recording, there was all this like energy kind of contracting in my throat, even almost like a sore throat sensation. And it was just like this contraction in preparation for this new beginning of me speaking and sharing my voice in a way that is, you know, me holding my light in the next step for me. And
yeah,
when I zoom out and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just here on this spinning planet, like that energy just dissolves into just all that is. It's kind of like that analogy of when you take a drop of food coloring, for example. Say you take like a drop of red ink and you drop it into a glass of water, the concentration and the potency of that water becomes quite red. But then if you take a drop of red ink and you drop it into the ocean, it's just, you know, it's almost like it totally dissolves. And so any energy or concentration or experience that arises in the present moment, when our awareness is in the kind of glass of water that is just Pei-Ling in this meat suit, it seems so much more concentrated versus Pei-Ling as the oneness that includes all of existence. It's like, oh, it's just part of the ocean. Yeah. And it sounds like you intuitively like are shifting into that, you know, just expanded awareness.
Yeah, I mean, it's I love that you use the ocean as an example, because even like in the time that we had met in October of that year, I was living in Sunset, like just a couple blocks away from Ocean Beach. And like, it was such a comfort going there, remembering, like just well, first of all, the like vastness of the ocean. And then by comparison, like but also remembering, like, just like what you're saying, like that has brought me so much comfort, remembering how small I am in the world, like relieves my stress, or like gives me peace, or like it just like makes everything that I'm facing feel much more palatable and like much more in control, because there is some larger divine being that is in control over everything else, and like that is not on my shoulders. Like I am responsible for here and now. And so I mean, and it doesn't mean that I can't tap into that larger space, but it definitely is like, okay, like I don't have to right now. Like I can when I want to.
Absolutely. So, that verse, I could even feel in your voice that like the relief of being like, I don't have to do it alone. It's not just me. We're together, and I'm supported by life. And you're right, because it is. And like you said, you can access that, the connection and experiencing as that one larger divine, and we get to experience being the part of the whole. And that kind of really has been a revelation for me in this year of, I think I might have shared this with you, but 2021 for me was very much like, I am the whole, I am the ocean, I am you, I'm the plant, I'm the tree, I'm the sky. And in that expanded awareness, I was choosing not to be Pei-Ling in some ways. It was like I was choosing to allow the entire entity of Pei-Ling Lee and my individual essence to kind of dissolve. The concentrated red food coloring drop of Pei-Ling to dissolve into the ocean. And that was exactly what I was choosing to experience. And I'm so grateful that I got that experience. And then shifting into 2022, it's like, oh, I am the ocean, and I am a specific, maybe not red, but I'm like a specific unicorn, rainbow, sparkly, concentrated, fairy, cosmic, earth, something color, food coloring raindrop. Yeah, I'm like this raindrop, this rainbow raindrop that is specifically me. And I get to be that as well as the ocean all at once. And that's kind of this choice to celebrate the uniqueness that is us, and the fact that you are there and I am here and I am not you and you are not me, and yet I am you and you are me.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like you have to sit with it for a while and like really parse through like what it is that we're both feeling and like both saying, but it is simultaneously like a comforting and I'm not looking for this word necessarily, but I guess intimidating is another way of putting it too, because it's like you can be faced with the pressure of me trying to be you or you trying to be me, but it's also comforting because it's like, oh no, we are sharing like on the same like stream or like wavelength or something, and we're both like taking from this but also giving back to it as well. Yeah. And so it's not a full exchange that like deprives you of your individuality, but it also makes you a part of a community as well. So and I'm processing that as I say this out loud, but yeah.
Well, and that's I noticed that as you kind of you did this, so you like put your hands to your forehead, which I can so relate to that, because it's like the sensation of it being intimidating or a lot to process or to think about, at least for me, whenever that comes up, it's like right there, it's the mental, it's this kind of like forehead, it's the scrunching of the forehead being like, I gotta figure it out. It's like, how do I, because even I know sometimes, oftentimes I'm speaking and then it's all, I have no idea what I'm saying. And then it really, if I'm trying to figure out what I'm saying, I could even experience a headache, because there's like, it is, for the mind, it's almost like it's jumbling or confusing. There's that type of energy for, it's like, oh, how do I understand or know or grasp grasp. It's like grasping. It's how do I grasp these words and these concepts, these ideas, these energies, and even just like from feedback from a couple like people that I've been in conversation with before, I'm thinking of one friend in particular who we were talking and she was like, sometimes you talk, and I'm like right there with you. And she's like, sometimes you talk, and she just kind of, her eyes glaze over. Her eyes kind of glaze over. And I'm like, that, yeah, it's totally okay, because sometimes when words are being spoken, they're just washing over us like the waves of the ocean. We're not like, we're not catching the waves, even that phrase of like catching the waves. We're just like letting the water wash over us. And, oh, you said something else about the mind and the intimidating. Oh, well, that's drifted away.
There it went. Yep. You're actually, you're actually reminding me though of like, I think we've talked about this in our lessons too, of like the three kind of core parts of where the voice lives, or like how it like manifests, right? And so the first part is like your power, like your foundation and your diaphragms and your lung and your ear, the breath, right? Then you get to the like source of everything, which is the voice, and you and I work so much like here, right? Especially because
the throat.
For you, you've mentioned a lot of like inner voice and child, like all that stuff here, which I think is probably what a lot of people struggle with, including myself, of just like accessing this or like gaining more agency over it. And then, but lastly, like what you reminded me of too is like everything above the throat is the filter. And I think about filters, and I think about from a vocal perspective, it's like, okay, we are shifting and molding and like shaping the way that we want this sound to come out, whether it's via the vowels or consonants that we use, or the tonal shifts, or the range that we're speaking in, or like things like that, to kind of like convey this message. But it's still like an active, conscious choice to kind of spit these out the way that we are. And I think about, but also, I'm kind of reaching here, but in a coffee sense, like a filter is also to filter out all of the particles that you don't want either.
Yeah.
Just getting the concentration of liquid out, which you want. So yeah, I don't know. It's just making me think of that, of like all these different ways that we are using this like mind's logic and how we communicate our understanding of it afterwards.
Yeah, I really love that filter analogy. And I really love that filter analogy, because what's coming up is that even just these past couple days, sometimes I notice the seasons of, because like you said, when we're filter and when we experience being filtered and filtering ourselves, whether that is shifts in even like what we're consuming or what we're watching, what we're eating, we go through these seasons and these cycles. And as we filter our energy and we become and we exist as these even more concentrated, potent versions of ourselves, there can be this experience of the muck, I guess I'll use that word, the muck coming to the surface. Because it's like, it's almost like our consciousness is being filtered through the coffee filter. And then at first it seems like our awareness goes through the muck. And so we're seeing all the particles, the debris that is letting go. We pass through that first, and it can seem like that's that whole, program saying that it gets worse before it gets better. That is definitely one way that it can be experienced, of seeming like there's all this muck, and it's like, oh, there's all this muck. And that's just the journey of the filtration. That's just like the journey of descending down into that deeper, more concentrated embodiment of our essence. And, if we're in the coffee filter, we can experience that as, oh, it gets mucky before it gets pure, whatever it is. But really, at the same time, just like with the walls and the darkness and the light, we zoom out and we can see that we're already all of those things. Like, it seems like we're going through this linear experience of filtration, but when we zoom out and include the multidimensionality of, everything being in this now moment, we're already that potent espresso version shot of us, as well as the muck, and all of it gets to be included. And I can relate to this because just in these past couple days, I've been noticing myself, just like you, with the darkness in front. In particular, yesterday we had a lot of solar flare. There was just like really intense energies yesterday, and a lot of solar flares. And what the sun and the increased potency of the sun and the radiation coming from the sun, it kind of is like this energy that is shooting us through the filter. We're like zooming through this filter, and as we zoom through the filter, there's all this like gunk that comes up to the surface, these echoes of what we're complete with or ready to let go of or release. Like for me, that came in the form of I eat popcorn. I'll like get this bag of popcorn, and I'm just like eating popcorn, and then I watched the entire second season of Bridgerton in like one sitting. I like skimmed through the second season of Bridgerton, and I was like eating popcorn. And that's something where it's like, in that moment, I am embodying being the muck of the filter. I'm being the stuff that is being filtered out so that I can, filter through and evolve into what I'm becoming. And at the same time, I can choose to enjoy that experience because it gets to be included in what I experience. And I guess through many iterations of experiencing this filtration of these cycles of where it seems like I'm, numbing or avoiding or contracting, that I just know that is included in part of the journey of expansion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Actually, can we stay on this coffee analogy for a little bit? Because I don't know if you know this about when you do like a pour over or like a filtration system. I've had to learn a lot about it in preparation for this competition.
Yeah.
But a beautiful thing is that there are you can under extract coffee and you can over extract coffee, but the time that the grinds interact with the water determines the extraction, whatever is in the cup at the end of the day, right? And so, but what I love about it is it's not just the temperature of water, and it's not just the amount of water. You're also factoring in the amount of grinds, quote unquote, in your filter, or how coarse or how fine did you grind, that you are if we're going to use us as the example of the coffee and our muck as the grinds, then we choose how coarse or how fine to have it, and that determines how long or how short the water sits with it, or our essence or our being sits with it. And it's this picture again of zooming out over you created the recipe, you are
exactly.
you are the thing that's brewing this, and just everything you're saying, I'm oh, yes, that's this part of when you make coffee, not this part, and it's so good, and that's all science as well, and so it's beautiful to see how that I feel science and spirituality are always they seem to be mutually exclusive, and yet I feel they're so intertwined all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and so this is just another one of those affirmations that they are intertwined. So
well, and that's the whole thing about quantum physics and stuff like that. When you go down to really the fundamental energy level, it is synonymous with. And I was just having a conversation with my brother about this because he's interested in quantum physics, and it's funny because I've never picked up a quantum physics book in my life. And yet it's oftentimes the things that I speak, it's coming from an embodied experiential perspective. And whenever I happen to come across something that's talking about quantum physics or something, I'm oh yeah, I live that too. I can feel that in my body and I can experience that. And the other thing in the coffee analogy, as you were speaking about the coarseness of the grinds, and the other vision that came up is when you pan for gold, there's this river over in the Santa Cruz Mountains that I happen upon, and I've had this vision in a hypnotherapy journey where we were connecting with the mansion of my life, and in this one room there was a river and there were gold particles in it, and it was really connecting with the energy of overflowing abundance. In this room that is of abundance, the river distributes and circulates that abundance, the currencies, the waterways, the pathways of life, really. And even in something like a financial institution or financial systems, it's currency, it is a current, and the money is just a vessel of consciousness. It's almost like a seed of energy. It really is just a seed of conscious energy that can be programmed or not programmed, or carrying any frequency of consciousness. And the currencies, the waterways of life just distribute that in the flow and in overflow. And so that vision of the river with these gold particles, it's just like that coffee filtration, because as we filter out whatever and then we pan for gold, we notice that part of that muck, part of the grinds, there are these particles of gold in that as well. And it's almost all of the grinds, all of the muck, all of the grit that we are seeming to filter out, that's treasure. There's treasure in that as well, because those offer so much. There's such richness within that for us as well. Like, because we're, like you said, I love that, like, zooming out, and we're the ones brewing it. We're the ones making the recipe. If we just wanted the river with nothing to filter, we would just do that. If there was nothing to filter, we would just, like, already be in that state.
Yep. Yeah. I think about this all the time in the sense of, like, you know, without darkness there cannot be light, right? Like like the opposites and, like, the very nature of, like, yin and yang, of this idea of, like, how would I know what a highest version of myself would look like without experiencing a low version of myself? And I feel like that's a lot of the same. It's like, how can I know what a clean, clear cup of quote unquote coffee would look like without also then experiencing, like, a coffee that isn't filtered with this, like, muck and, like, this grinds and stuff. So it in a way, like, it is gold. It is this, like, beautiful treasure that has allowed me then to experience something even greater beyond it. So I think about that all the time.
What is a way that kind of, is there an experience as you, because I definitely relate to that in the sense that for me, it feels like, so I'm about to turn 25, and the first 22 years of my life, really, because I'm experiencing some echoes in these past, like, as I'm closing out 24, the first 22 most potently, but then 24, all of these energies of being the muck. Like, I was living as the muck of my life. And what I mean by that is that I was living only knowing and remembering that there is muck. It's like my awareness, I wasn't living from a zoomed out state of being like, there's more to this. Yes, I had glimmers of remembrance of, like, there must be something more than just the muck of living in this, like, rat race or achievement or straight A's and da-da-da-da-da. And not enoughness and lack and separation and isolation and aloneness. And I'm so glad and grateful that I chose to experience that, because, like you said, it's like this experience of contrast. And it also, it's funny because at least in my journey, it's helped me connect with humans. Like, it's offered me a human experience that can then relate and connect and be an access point where somebody is like, if somebody is experiencing from the place of feeling unworthy, it's like, oh, yep, I got that. I've felt that. I've lived that and experienced and embodied that. Versus if I came in and incarnated right now exactly as I am, with just, like, already cosmically and open and all these things, that would just be a totally different journey. That would simply be a totally different journey. And yeah, what about for you? Like, is there something, because for me, when I think about that contrast experience, it has been really formative, and I'm so grateful that I've chosen to include that in my recipe. What are you grateful? Like, whether it's darkness or contrast?
Yeah, I think, so I'm approaching 27, right? And so I would say for the last 25 years, so to speak, like, these last 2 years have been super formative and really changing for me. But I think in the same way that I have said, like, oh, like, you zoom out and you're the one making the recipe, it's like, I think for the first 25 years, like, I wasn't making the recipe. Like, I was just kind of, like, letting people determine aspects of my recipe for me, and kind of just trusting that everybody had goodwill and good intention for me, which is not entirely wrong, but it's also not entirely true as well. And also giving myself some credit that I also know what's good and true for me as well. And so I think that was, like, a big area of, like, I'm grateful that I allowed so many people to, like, touch my life, but I'm also, and I'm better for it, but I'm also kind of like, okay, I've learned what it feels like to not have agency over my life as well. So that's been big in the last 2 years, especially. And so now when I do zoom out, I'm like, oh, like I am the one holding my light or my lantern. Oh, like I am the one like putting the coffee in the filter, and like my hands are active and engaged and in this process, and that's super scary initially because it's like, oh man, do I want that responsibility? But now I've come to this place where I'm like, oh man, I'm excited because I trust myself with this responsibility. So different, so different.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, and that it is. And that's such a aspect of it that it's like vibrational autonomy and boundaries and self-sovereignty and self-determination and just like sourcing. That's why, I mean, I've been shifting my use of language from like empowerment, like as in EM, and embodiment, EM. What's been resonating with me is shifting all those, what are they called, prefixes to IN. And so that's been a very intentional thing of me shifting and evolving my language to be embodiment and empowerment. And it really is, it's like, at least in my experience of it, the power is coming from within. And that trust and that light is coming from within, and it's radiating out. And it's not this outside force that comes in and inhabits me. Yes, it is in some ways as well, because as we shift and expand our consciousness, we realize that anything that seems to be coming from outside within us is also still us. And so that's why it's like within is also what is coming from outside of us. And drifted away. Whatever, it just drifted away. What was the last thing you said? Do you remember?
I mean, kind of.
Or what's here now?
Yeah, what's here now is just this idea of like, actually, to be honest, nothing. But there is like just being present. Like, I think right now it's just like, I'm present, I'm here, I'm listening, and I'm engaged, and I'm like, because I like, even within the last 6 hours, literally, like today's my day off from working at the coffee shop, and I was like intending on sleeping in, and I physically was exhausted, ready to like go back to sleep, and 7:30 this morning, and yet the thoughts of trying to recall my dreams prior to waking up sent me into this stress spiral, because it started making me think about like, oh, in my dream I was tasting somebody else's drink that reminded me of the notes that I'm going to mention about my coffee next week. And so I was like trying to like do breathing to like get me out of this, or like focus on sounds around me. And I was just like, I guess my body and whatever around me is calling me to wake up right now. And so, just allowing myself to be like, okay, like I don't need to force myself to be where I don't need to be, or where I'm not being called to be. So I don't know. Yeah. This just, again, like the idea of like overall agency over these things that feel so out of control. And that I think would be and would have been anxiety inducing in the past, but now I'm like, all right, like you're not giving in necessarily, but you are like making space for it. Like you are choosing to.
Yeah. Well, I love that framing of making space, because that kind of is at least my experience of it, and what we're even describing about in this entire conversation, in expanding and zooming out, that's spaciousness. We're like even expanding our awareness to include the entire cosmos. That is literally, as they call, space. And so we are expanding our awareness to be spacious as the infinite ocean, so that the dream that arises within you, or whatever that like stress spiral seems to be in the moment, it can be included, and it's not as potent or concentrated as it is that it once seemed to be as well. And I think you also were highlighting something else, which is I have my like two hands kind of holding side by side, because there's control and there's agency and there's choice and empowered choice. And then there's also surrender and flow. And like you said, it's not quite giving in. And I think that there's definitely, there's all this bloop, bloop, bloop. My, like, I do jazz hands around my mind or like around my forehead area whenever it's kind of these thought form energies of programming or separation consciousness or anything like that, because it really is this, you can't give in, just don't give in, don't give up, don't give in, you gotta resist. It's just the energy of resistance. And the control can be trying to control, manipulate, change, grasp, which we were also talking about, what is. It's like we're trying to, even the energy of trying, it's like trying to control and change or fix what is. And at least in my experience of that energy, which that, you know, absolutely can be part of it, in experiencing as the effort of trying, it's kind of, it just, like you said, it spirals. It just spirals in that energy, and it kind of is this like echo chamber of grasping effort. And then as soon as I go, I love that you talked about the breath, even like inhaling and exhaling and zooming out, and as soon as I include the efforting in my experience of what is and allow it to be there, it's like, can I just allow this efforting, this trying, this grasping, this fixing, this changing? Can I allow this contrast, this darkness, whatever it is, can I allow it to be part of what is? And then as soon as I remember, because even asking that question, it reminds me at least that I have a choice. I can choose to allow it, or I can choose to resist it. And it's, we talk about the yin yang, the duality. The thing is, they're equal. Like, it's not better or worse to allow or resist. As we talked about the recipe of the coffee brew of our life, it's like the muck, the resistance, the filtering, all of that is divine and serves a divine purpose and is aligned to be part of what is. And yeah, the allowing and the spaciousness is, and even your orienting and centering, when I ask like, what's here, really what's here is just being here. What's here is just being present, being now, being here, and just honoring and allowing what is to be here.
Yeah. You did this with your hands earlier, and it reminded me of the exercise we did with the two balls. Do you remember us like shifting that weight over to each other? And it reminded me of how one hand is responsible for bringing the ball over to the other hand, but the other hand just receives. And then they switch gears, and then it's like this dance, or like this dialogue between two energies that you have, where it's like, you're not there isn't just one side that feels like it's constantly in control, and there's not just one side that constantly receives, but they it's like a partnership or like an exchange, and this so this is what it reminded me of. And that I love that you use the word partnership as well. It's because it is partnership. And just to describe what we're doing with our hands, it's like we have our hands cupped with palms facing up next to each other. And in that exercise, it's kind of like you're tipping one hand into the other. So as though you're holding something in your one hand and then you're tipping it into the other. And then, like you said, they switch places. And so each hand is a giver, each hand is a receiver, each hand is a doer, and each hand is a beer, and all of those things. And it's like that is the partnership within us, within the oneness that is our individual self. We have already that partnership, the union, like divine union, divine partnership, all of those things are already integrated, whole, and complete within us.
And the body is like, the human body and form is just a beautiful reminder of that. And like the fact that if we have hands and we can hold our own hands and that's available to us, like that's literally like, wow, they're 10 fingers that are just like holding each other and like, and they become in a clasped held hand, they become this one unit. They just become one. And at the same time, we can part our hands and we get to experience two hands. And one hand can be like doing one thing and the other hand can be doing something totally different. And at the same time, they're still connected with that oneness. And even that, because as we're navigating and we're experiencing this shift over these years and, you know, ongoing this evolutionary time on the planet right now, it's like we're remembering that the divine union, the divine partnership is already within us. And how wonderful, because it is like you're talking about how much agency we have within, how much trust there is within us. It's like, it's no longer about looking outside of us or turning to those outside for our answers. That's why this podcast is called Spiraling Within. Because
I was just thinking that.
It's we're literally spiraling within us.
I love that. And I just keep thinking the word, like you brought up earlier, duality keeps coming to mind, but also like oneness within duality. It feels oxymoronic, and yet like it makes so much sense as well. So I don't know what that means, or if that resonates with anybody who might listen to this, or even with us right now. But it feels like that is the truth that we hopefully all get to come to, is this like there is a oneness within this like duality of giving and receiving for both sides. And so I don't know, like that just really resonated with me and like made me so happy, because it's like that's my journey that I've been on for these last couple of years. And like I feel like I'm getting understanding so much more on a much deeper level as well. So spiraling within, it felt so very true.
And I think just something that is you're sharing about the duality and the oneness is, because that is, as we were talking about the experiences of contrast, for me, the like first 22 years was living in duality and believing. And that's what when I say separation consciousness, it's the belief that there is good, bad, right, wrong. And those are distinctly separate things that are not the same. It's like believing that duality is only duality, and that there is this polarization, opposition that is not one and of itself, if that makes sense. So it's basically duality as duality without oneness. But then the piece of adding the oneness and the remembrance that the duality is the oneness and the oneness is the duality, it kind of makes everything that seems extreme or seems separated, it just brings it into harmony and wholeness. And we have that power within us to harmonize things, to integrate and to connect and to include simply within our intention, our awareness, our consciousness. And that's so powerful. That's like beautifully powerful and we don't even have to say anything even, because as you're saying the duality, it's like I kind of had there were these flashes of various people who I'm connected with in this moment in life who are different, who are each at different points of their experience with duality. Like there are people that I know who are also just like in this time of living in duality and believing in duality and choosing to believe duality. And on one level, they're absolutely, that's part of the recipe of the coffee that they're experiencing of this moment, is they're choosing to experience and believe that duality is exactly what it is, and that's all there is. And because because I choose to experience oneness, even within their experience of duality, I remember that they are also within the oneness. So that, like, even though they are believing that there's good and bad or right and wrong, they're believing good and bad, right and wrong. Or a part of me is believing that there's good and bad, right and wrong. As being zoomed out, I guess in other words, I remember that part of them remembers. That's it. Yeah.
I actually resonate with what you're saying in the sense of the voice. Like, I think vocal range, or like taking people along this journey to discover their voice, is exactly what you're talking about. Because I remember when you first started it, it was like you were so comfortable in this one extreme part of your voice. And if we compared that now, which we have in the past couple times, and looked at how easily you flow and move back and forth between that extreme end to the other, to your upper range, it's just like, it's not two separate chest voice, head voice anymore. It's like, it's your voice. It's just your voice. And like, they can still exist in their own separate spaces, but you, like, your voice is complete because they're both being accessed. And it's like a lot of what I talk about with my other students, and you included, is like, you are your instrument. Like, unlike any other musical instrument there is out there, like, it lives literally in your body, like your whole body, whether it's your pinky toe or your scrunch of your nose, like, that is your instrument just as much as what's happening here in the throat. Yeah, and I just think what you're saying about remembering that they are also a part of this oneness too is kind of like where I live, in the sense of I'm trying to get other people in their musical journey, vocal journey, to remember their oneness of their voice, like to remember that they don't just live in one area of their voice. And I think it's a lot of the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of that, I mean, just recalling the beginnings of our journey, I think what can be powerful about having somebody reflect and support you in that journey, like for me, being able to receive your feedback and your reflection helped me realize it, like, by you holding up that mirror, it was like, oh, I actually am only accessing this one aspect of my range. Like, I didn't even realize that I didn't even know I was in the extreme. And that's the whole thing about being in the muck. Like, I didn't even know that I was in this extreme. And when we say extreme, I essentially was speaking at the back of my throat, and like my voice is much deeper, and I probably spoke something like this, and I was also much more monotone. Even as I speak it now, like, my eyes are drooping. My eyes are literally drooping, because it's like that's how the energy shifts when I'm speaking like that. And it was just this like suppression and this closing, and very much. And that's why I love talking about the quantum voice, because it literally is quantum. It's like within this, like, that is the gold, that's the treasure, those are the grinds that, in hearing the feedback from you and being like, and getting to become aware of that habit, and even the fact of noticing that it was a habit and a tendency for my voice to be in that space, that's so empowering, because it's like, I can evolve, I can change. My voice doesn't have to be stuck or seem like it is stuck in that one aspect of my range. And then over the course of these like 2-3 years, discovering that it's like, oh my gosh, my range is like infinite in many ways. Because my our range is infinite, even if the sounds that we produce are not audible to the human ear, our range is infinite.
Yes. And like, I think one of the areas that opened up my world first, and then I was able to kind of help open up yours, was this idea, and if we want to talk about quantum, we can get in that gritty, because just looking at acoustics and harmonics, like, although you were like speaking down here, like in the back of your throat and all that stuff, like, to the human ear, that's all you were living in. And yet, at the same time, you were still accessing, like, note up here, or whatever. But, like, we just couldn't hear it. And, like, you weren't aware of it. And I love that about acoustics and harmonics, is like you're constantly always accessing these particular frequencies. It's like sound frequency, but you just are choosing to highlight one particular frequency to the human eye or human ear.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. This is so exciting because it's like, I say quantum because it's the quantum one moment. So essentially it's that everything that will be, that was, that seems to be, that is conscious, unconscious, all of that is here and now. And so what you're saying and what I'm hearing you're saying is that if I even just go, and as I'm speaking now, yes, it sounds like I'm speaking at this particular frequency, at this particular vibration. And at the same time, there's all this other expression, all of these other vibrations, frequencies that are also simultaneously being expressed. And that relates even in the sense of, yes, I am speaking as Pei-Ling, and in my experience, I'm also speaking as oneness. I'm speaking as divine. I'm speaking as, like, on my desk here, I have this little Kuan Yin candle, and I have like the Buddha there, and I have all these crystals. I'm also speaking in many ways as all of these energies being integrated, channeled, and collected through me. And the beauty of it is the listener, the receiver, even the speaker, doesn't need to cognitively know, doesn't need to mentally understand, doesn't need to consciously even. You don't even need to be conscious that this is happening, and it already is.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it too, right? Like sound frequency is like from like a sciencey technical perspective, like sound frequencies are always moving, they're traveling. Like it is, you sing in a gym and the sound gets absorbed into the walls, right? Like it's not, they just dissipate or disappear, they get absorbed. So like energies are taking and receiving. But at the same time too, like you sing in the bathroom and the tile bounces the sound back to you. Like it is an echo. Like it is now giving. Well, after you just gave. And it's like this idea, same thing again of like, I think my favorite part about harmonics though is this, again, like you're accessing things that are constantly existing around you forever and ever and always. And you get to pluck out specific things from all of this infinite existence that is just Pei-Ling or it's just Elise. And like I have yet to meet somebody who speaks in the same tonal frequency as me, but I also love that, like, in imitation of the voice, you can also access and tap into like that other person's frequencies as well. So beautiful.
Well, and that it's like everything is always available to us. All of even if we believe or we doubt or whatever seems to be present, even if we don't think that we can, it's all available to us. And just I was at a restaurant the other day and I heard the first ever song that we sung in our first ever lesson. And that song was Honey by Kehlani.
Oh my gosh.
And the fact that that was my first song, even my reflection on it now, it's like in some ways I was accessing an energy. It's kind of like wearing a mask. Or, growing up and you try on all these different outfits and you're like, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. And I think that in our lessons, I've gotten to try on many different outfits of songs and styles. And we've done opera and like Lake Street Dive and, just many different flavors of expressing sound. And that has just mirrored me putting on all these different outfits, whether it's like literal clothing is the way that I'm expressing, or different outfits of sometimes we're going through different possible jobs or areas of focus or hobbies. And it's being like, okay, like there was a period in 2020 when I was like taking dance lessons and then I'm a baker and then I'm like doing this. And getting to try those on, inhabit them, embody them, experience them. And this is something that I, even just yesterday, I was reflecting on and accepting about being in my 20s, is trying on, like accepting that I'm like trying on all these different things as I am filtering. I'm filtering and honing in and connecting with the essence that is me. And what feels to be the truest, most potent, authentic expression of Pei-Ling. And in this journey, I've gotten to be like, okay, this is what it sounds like or feels like to imitate or channel, and that really is, it's channel this singer's particular style of singing. And that's been part of my journey of being like, oh, this is what my particular style of singing is in this moment, because my voice evolves and changes as I do too. And so the way that I sing now, the songs that I write now are specific to this now moment. And then as the quantum moment develops, evolves, all of those things, in 5 years, the songs are going to be different. And that's how exciting.
Well, it also is like very telling because you started off with imitation. Like you started off with accessing other people's versions of their voices and like whatnot. And it's so beautiful to see like now in these most recent times that we've met, especially, it's just yours. Like it's your voices. It's your songs. It's your words. It's your energy, your spirit, your whatever you want to call it, like, that comes through now, instead of like that feels more true to you right now than those other voices. Yeah. And I just think that's so amazing because it's like we couldn't have started day one there. Like we just couldn't have. And as much as I would have loved that would have been cool. Like it's the growth of, and again, this like, duality or this like you got to be in your vocal muck, for lack of a better way of putting it, to then filter out and like this is Pei-Ling's voice. Like that's at the end of the day, this is your voice now.
And the beauty, I think, of the imitating as well is that we didn't start there because that's not where I was in that moment. In that moment, the Pei-Ling who showed up in the studio with you that very first day was very was in fear, was in hiding, was in contraction and all of those things. And that was my truth. And that's the great thing about our truth in each moment. It happens to be right now in this moment, my truth is speaking in the way that sounds like Pei-Ling and da-da-da. And even when I sang Honey by Kalani, even when I was doing the imitation, it was coming through me in a specific, unique way to me. So even when we do imitate, it is still encoded with the frequency of our unique essence. And so there's something special and unique, even in the fact that it comes through me in that moment. And it's quite profound to actually consider and reflect and appreciate how quickly it has been a very accelerated vocal and spiritual journey these past 2 years. And I think going through the voice and being with the voice, it's really that it's just gone hand in hand with all of accessing the stuff. And that's why it's cool about the sound and the energy is that like as my range has expanded into those higher frequencies, my awareness and consciousness and access to the cosmic frequencies has mirrored, and to the stars and all of those things. As I've found strength, stability in my diaphragm and my rootedness of my voice, I've been connecting with the earth and rooting in the earth and all of those things. And so it's really just like so magical.
It is so true. I freaking love the voice so much. And I don't know, like, I just want to sit in that moment for a sec and just, like, celebrate that. Like, first of all, how far you've come, like, as a vocal student, but, like, also in terms of, like, your growth. Like, your voice means a lot. And the voice is so reflective of where you are in that time. And if anything, like, this is the most free for lack of a way of putting it. Like, your voice is probably felt. And same for me, too. Like, I think I was a very shy, timid teacher at that point in my life as well. Of like, all right, I've been teaching for like a year at that point, but I was still very, also kind of like in hiding or in fear of like, am I saying the right things? Am I leading you down this correct road? And now I'm like, let's just explore this together. Like, let's just see what happens. And it's so different. It's so different, and yet it has been the most fruitful, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And that it's like partnering, because we're partnering in a lesson, in a session. We're partnering with each other. We're partnering with the voice. We're partnering with what's present. And that's ultimately when we go circle all the way back to the hermit holding the lantern in the corner with the darkness. It's like, that's what's here. That's what's illuminating. And even if it seems to be contraction or muck that's present, like even right now in this moment, there's energy, there's sensation in my voice, kind of at the base of my tongue area. And that's okay. Like, it's okay that there's sensation present. It's okay that there's energy present. It's okay, whatever is here, and that gets to be included. And it's amazing. Also, I remember at the beginning, we were talking about, or you were inviting me to brighten my voice, or just like I felt like that kind of was a guiding light or a direction for the voice, which it makes, that is actually resonant on all levels of my life. It was like as I was going through this journey of brightening my voice, I was brightening my life. And that really is what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is another word where I resonate with shifting EN to IN, because it's like the inner light. I was in the journey of like discovering, connecting, and lighting up within. And it's not that the light was off. The light is always on. It was just connecting with and remembering it. And as brightening my voice, like right now, my voice is the energy of it, it's kind of it's very forward, and it's lifted at the top of my mouth. And it's just bright. There's a brightness, there's a vibrancy to it. And it's just a testament as well to divine timing. It's like no vocal warm up or exercise. It wasn't like an immediate overnight thing. It's just been part of the evolution and the unfolding. And it
just reminded me of the backed up into the corner analogy, like kind of coming full circle in a sense of like, I felt like maybe you and I in some way were like metaphorically like facing the corner. Like we were just standing in the corner, and our like back is to the light, and we just like don't know what's on, because all we see is this dark corner. And and then we've like finally come 180 to be like, oh my god, the light's on. I can see what's right now, like what's right here. And like that's kind of what it feels like. That was the image that popped into my head when you were saying that we had, like, you just needed to know that the light was always on. Like it wasn't. I just
oh my gosh. And do you know why that's extra fitting? Because before my feng shui consultation with this room and the desk, my desk was literally facing the corner. I was literally facing the wall. And then she gave me the suggestion. She was like, you can turn your desk so that I'm facing the window, facing the light, facing the sun. And that has like exploded and expanded all of my creativity and everything. And so, if you're facing a corner, the fact that I could just, like that option was always available to me at any moment if I wanted to. If I chose to, I could just freaking turn my desk to face the window. That was always available to me, and it didn't even occur to me. Or if it did occur to me, there were all these reasons why. Because there can be all these mental little flippy fluffers saying, "Oh, I shouldn't turn around because of this," or "I shouldn't turn around because I'm afraid of the darkness that's behind me. I'm afraid of what the darkness might hold." And as long as I'm, now I'm like really feeling this. As long as I'm facing this wall, I know what's in front of me. And so if I'm facing the wall, then if I'm facing the wall, then I know what's in front of me, and I can hold the wall. I can touch the wall. This is.
Yeah, I'm getting emotional, like hearing you say this.
Me too. There's I feel this in every ounce of my spacious heart. It's the safety of the corner, the safety of the walls, of facing the walls, and even with the ancestors in it, even facing our ancestors and facing what our lineage, what our past, our history, how our parents have lived, how our generations, how they've lived, facing them, facing our past, and being like, this is what is known, this is what is safe, this is what is comfortable. And we're facing the wall, and at any point we turn around. Oh my gosh, okay, so the ancestors are behind and I'm facing the wall, but then there's a shift that happens, or at least that I've experienced, where in me turning around so that my ancestors are supporting me behind, I become the ancestor. I am living and creating my legacy. We are creating our legacy. We are charting the uncharted path. We are forging the way for the lineage, the ancestors that are to come. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Because, I mean, it's the same, it's like trust fall, you know? It's like, or the same reason as to why we worked so well for you to like physically lean up against this wall, because at some point, like, we will also be here. Mm-hmm. We will also be in that wall. And, oh man, like, it was such a beautiful, like, emotional realization of being like, I don't have to fear what's ahead of me because I'm no longer fearing what's behind me either. And it's like the world becomes 360, and and it's just like so much bigger and brighter, and there's lots of common themes, obviously, of our conversation today, of just like zooming out and like duality and oneness, and it's just like we've been on a very like similar parallel journey in our own individual life, and yet there is oneness in that too. Yeah. At the same time.
Oh my gosh, wait, what you just said about not fearing what's ahead because we're not fearing what's behind, that energy of fear. Well, that energy of fear, it's not isolated. Oftentimes the energy of fear, it's just an energy that is dispersed and kind of blanketed across everything. It's like this overlay that if you're in fear, you're oftentimes in fear about everything and about a lot of things. And it's not personal to us, that kind of like overlay, or even fear can be a filter. Ooh, that's a thing. Fear can even be a filter. Yeah. As we experience, it goes through the filter of fear. And then the filter of fear, it's almost like a charcoal filter, where then it kind of has, the filter itself leaves residue within our kind of coffee that is underneath, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that fearing what's behind, it's like just the facing the corner thing. At least in my own journey, a lot of my spiritual stuff, all of my remembrance, it kind of was catalyzed very much by looking at my past. When I reflect on my years in college, so much of my inner inquiry was, and it was coming from a place of feeling like there was something wrong with me. It was, let me look at my past. Let me look at all of these things that have happened in my life. Let me look at my ancestry, my lineage, and try and figure out why I am the way I am. It was like I was facing the corner because I wanted to be like, why am I here? Why am I the way that I am? And yeah, that was just part of my journey. And it was the intergenerational trauma, that recognition that it's like, I am the way that I am because I am connected with this whole lineage. There are all of these things influencing me, being me, that are beyond me, especially being in a physical, and it really comes down to kind of like the physical experience as well, that, I mean, our DNA is literally connected. That's like genetics and ancestral genetics and all of those things. Our DNA is connected to our lineage of bloodline and all of those things. So we are all tied in that way. And in looking back and embracing and including my past into my present, it then, that was, at least for me, part of my journey of accepting and returning. It's kind of like I was looking at the wall and I was being like, here's all this stuff within me that actually isn't mine, that actually isn't Pei-Ling's. It's all of your stuff. And so let me just like gather this stuff that isn't mine and be like, here you go. Let me give it back to the walls, because that's for them to be with. There were all of these patterns and programs that were not mine, and traumas and experiences that were not mine, that I was living within, and then getting the freedom of being like, let me return this to you, grandmother, or, you know, great grandfather. And I don't even need to know who I'm returning it to. I just know that it is not mine. And that kind of is part of that filtration. It's like filtering what is not mine.
Well, the crazy thing too, and first of all, like, I 100% resonate with like everything that you're saying, because I feel like that has been a huge part of my journey as well, in this, like, looking back and starting small with like just learning to like hug and accept and like embrace small Elise, or like high school Elise or college Elise, right? And like, but then also recognizing that like some of the trauma that we hold, and it got back to this, like, the residue that you said that fear kind of like goes through that filter. It's like the same idea of like, maybe we're just holding on, or like have a smudged residue of like my grandmother's fear, or like my mother's fear, or like whomever's fear ahead of me, and remembering like, oh, that's not mine. Like that wasn't mine to begin with. And yet, like, it's just so beautiful, because I really also have like resonated and dove into like intergenerational trauma, and like how that has played a role into my existence, essentially. But I just like, I really, really, really resonate with that, and I'm also kind of in that same sphere of, we can look back into the corner, unload what wasn't ours, and so that we can turn around and like embrace what is going to be ours.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's unloading. It absolutely is unloading. And that's the wonderful thing as well, is because I think at the beginning of my ancestral kind of 2019, 2020, where my consciousness was I was like, okay, this isn't mine. This is my mom's. Like, this is from her lived experience, or this is my dad's, or this is somebody in my lineage, generations. And saying that it is somebody's that is not mine, it's not mine in the sense of being personal or ownership even, you know, like it's not my mom's, as in it's not necessarily, and I say that it's not personal because the frequency of all the things that we're talking about, it's just like sound, it's just energy. It's just this like neutral energy. And so even for my mom, she could turn around and look in the corner and find all these connections of like, oh, it's not mine either. And so it's kind of both like, it's not mine, but can I, if it is here, harmonize it, integrate it, include it? And that's the process of, yes, we're unloading, and we're allowing it to be part of our experience because it's part of what we have experienced. And in doing that, we're bringing it into wholeness, and it becomes everything that is behind us. It becomes like rocket fuel. That is what fuels and helps propel us into as we move forward. That like generates this energy of momentum. And so all of that, just back to the coffee filter, all of the muck, all of the gunk, anything that we're offloading propels us forward and just supports us and energizes us as well.
Yeah, and what's beautiful about that same analogy too is like, even in the unloading, you have so much agency and choice that you get to choose what you keep from unloading, like, and what you want to take with you with that process. And that is so true. And it's kind of I mean, if we're going to use coffee as an analogy again, it's like, what am I extracting from these grinds? What am I, and yeah, you can under extract or you can over extract, but that is completely up to you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I love that. And I feel like that's a wonderful place. Because even with something like this, if you're listening, whoever is in the ethers and any point in time listening to this conversation, as you listen, you're extracting whatever you're choosing to extract, and you're filtering out whatever isn't for you. And so in any given moment, because we're the ones creating the recipe for ourselves, whether we remember or recognize that we're creating the recipe, because sometimes we can forget that we're the ones creating the recipe.
Right.
And then as we remember that we're creating the recipe, it's like, yeah, I can just leave what isn't for me, and only what is for me is what I receive and absorb, because we absorb sound, we absorb energy, and it's trusting. And I love what you said about trust earlier too. It's like trusting that we are only ever receiving what is for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Oh, I feel like this is a wonderful place. So I haven't asked you beforehand, but is there, as we close, something like an exercise or an experience that you might share or offer or guide us in as we kind of close out the space?
I didn't prep anything beforehand, but I think after having this conversation with you today, like what's coming to mind is I'm hoping that whomever is listening right now can like sit with their voices, and I think a really good exercise that doesn't even require like a musical instrument, like if you don't have access to that, is simply just, I think I've had you do this before a long time ago, but just like listening and engaging with sounds that you make right now, here and right now. Whether that's us doing that affirmational, like, or, or like a laugh or a hello or something that, if it's talking to yourself or your pet or your wall or whatever, like, you're engaging with your voice still. And so I think offering this moment to verbally and vocally engage with what is happening within is a great way to be like, this is where you live right now in this moment. And it doesn't have to mean anything other than like you are accessing this note in the many frequencies of notes. And I feel like right now you, Pei-Ling and I, Elise, can shine the light for whoever's listening for them. And then they from there can be like, okay, I'll take it from there. Like, I'll take it from here. And that's kind of what it feels like. It's just...
Well, I love that. And so say I'm listening, because I am listening to you right now and I'm experiencing this live. As I speak, what are some questions that I may, or what are some areas of expressing sound that I can invite awareness to? Like, is it the sensation or is it placement? What aspects? Yeah,
I would say, like, as you're listening to your own voice and like you're feeling the vibrations and resonance of your own voice, close your eyes and like hone in on where you are feeling it. Like, is it living in your throat? Is it living in your mouth, your head, your toes? Like, what part of your physical instrument is your voice living in? And what else is it accessing? Is it being powered by the diaphragm, or are you just solely trying to vocalize from the throat? Are your hands moving? Are your toes moving? Like, what works for you in manifesting this voice? So yeah, I think those are questions that I would ask.
Yeah, so if I'm kind of tuning into those things with myself, I find it helpful to close my eyes when I'm really sensing within the physical body. I think that that's a great way to, you know, turn inwards, especially with sound and energy. And so if I'm tuning into my voice, I sense that, honestly, it kind of, I feel the resonance of it in my mouth area, the mouth kind of upper throat-ish, but really also kind of in that like third eye, forehead space, just the entire head chamber. And this is something that I love when the eyes are closed or when we're tuning into our direct experience. And I can invite you to do this as well, Elise, like when you close your eyes and when I close my eyes, and as we're noticing the voice, is there an edge to where the sound ends? When we speak, is there an edge or a boundary where the sound ends? And part of that, speaking to the whole body, the whole self as being the instrument, even in your direct experience of the body right now, is there an edge to where you end and the air around you begins? So, because as I'm tuning into my voice, like I'm saying that it's kind of in the general area of my mouth, but really it's kind of dissolved and dispersed. Like as my eyes are closed, I could not tell you where my skin ends. I could not tell you where my skin ends and the air begins, because I'm just pure energy. And that energy has, I love that you said when we're manifesting our voice, like it's expressing in different ways. So as my hands move when I talk, I feel the kind of activation of the energy there. And like I feel the coolness of the sensation of the bottoms of my feet upon the hardwood floor. And at the same time, it's like there are no hard edges to me. What do you experience?
Well, even as like I'm just fully listening to you, like I'm realizing that like, I'm losing sensation in my body because I'm getting so entranced, like, and fully engaged in your voice. Like I'm being swept up in a whole body experience, like as you're speaking. So what I also love though too is it's your voice as I'm listening to it is still creating an image or this vision of like a folding fan unfolding, but the base of the fan where you hold it starts at the throat and it unfolds in the face. So it's like the openness of the fan is kind of like moving upward. And like I don't really feel my hands or anything below the throat, to be honest. And but it's a very like lightening experience. Which like I can say that I know that from us first encountering each other, like I remember hearing your voice and feeling heavy in my throat originally, because that's where you lived and at that time. And so it feels so much lighter and feels different hearing it now.
Wow, that's such a, as you're saying that and as you were describing the fan, I can, like the top of the crown of my head, there's just all this energy, tingles, activation. It's like this affirmation that it's like, yep, we are connecting up and out and around. And I love your description of listening as well, because as I was listening to your voice, and even as I listened to my own voice, it's like the whole body, yes, it's the instrument and it's the receiving vessel. It's the transmitter as well as the receiver. And I am listening and receiving the sound that I expressed as well as the sound that you express with my whole body. And I love what you had said earlier about harmonics and sound and the way it bounces off and the way that it is absorbed. Because that's literally what's happening. As you speak, as I speak, and I receive the sound into every single cell of my body and beingness, it's like an alchemical reaction. It kind of sparks things within my cells, within my mind's eye, within my light, within my spirit, within my heart. And that then, sparks different things. And that's how conversation happens and continues. It's that we receive sound, we experience that sound. There are these alchemical processes that happen, and then we respond with that which has been sparked and lit up within us.
I'm not sure what this means exactly at this moment, but I have this image coming to mind. Like, your voice has this image of a, like, side hug. And sorry, let me rephrase that. Like, it has the image of a hug, but it's like you're laying comfortably on your side. Like, in it, it's just like an embrace, like a warm embrace. And it's like, it's kind of what the tone feels like. And that's like the image that popped in my mind. Like, as you're describing these things, it has this warmth to it, but this roundedness of it as well, like silk sheets on the bed. And yeah, so that's like, I don't know how you receive that or how you take that, but that's kind of what's coming to mind.
Oh, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing. And that actually, I'm listening to you, as I was listening to your voice, the vision that was coming up for your voice. In my experience of your voice, it's like this teddy bear. It's like this cute, fluffy teddy bear that's like, it's like your best friend. It's like you just like cuddle this teddy bear because you know it's so comforting and warm, but it's also like you play with this teddy bear as well. It's like there's definitely such a, like what you're saying about the warmth, there's a warmth, but there's a joyful, playful, soft, cuddly aspect in how I experience your voice. And what the beautiful thing is that someone else experiencing my voice or someone else experiencing your voice, their vision or how they receive it is going to be completely unique to them.
Yeah.
And so someone else listening, and that's how the alchemy of me receiving your voice, you receiving my voice, it's like you're receiving what's for you and I'm receiving what's for me. Like, how special it is. Like, there are even like tears kind of welling in my eyes of how special it is that in our dynamic and relationship and connection, like, you're a cuddly, like, teddy bear who's like my friend that I get to play with. And like for you, I'm this like fan that expands to the light and this like side hug, and how wonderful.
It's so good. And I encourage like whoever is listening right now to also engage with that, and like in listening to, you can start with our voices, or you can also engage with voices that are around you, like how you have access around you, whether they're strangers or people you hold close to your heart. Like, so I just think that like the voice manifests as different images to ourselves. So yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And also I would add on, because as you began this as listening to your own voice, even as you're sitting and listening and exploring the sound of your own voice, what is it like? What images, what sensations, what thoughts, what arises as you receive your own voice as well? Because as I'm listening to my own voice, there's, funny, rainbows. I see rainbows. I feel like rainbows, and I feel like I experience like shooting stars. And flowers blossoming. What about you? What do you hear when you experience your voice speaking?
I think about caramelized sugar.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Well, I say yes because that's the color of the bear that I was experiencing. It's like the caramelized sugar color of the bear.
I think about this like, you know, if you stretch out sugar while it's still warm, it's like it has these flexible properties. But also, like, if you eat it and consume it like as it is, it's like sweet and like a brown sugar, right? Like, it's very, you know, like melty in your mouth in a sense, but it's also like a warm. Yeah, warmth is definitely something I feel in my voice, which is nice. But it's like coating, like an all-encompassing like brown sugar, caramel, sweet but not overbearing sweet, and it feels good. And I'm sure it tastes nice.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it sounds delicious. The experience is so sweet. Aw. Wow, this has been such a fun conversation and experience. Thank you, Elise.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I had so much fun. I did not know what to expect, but this is far beyond expectations. So good.
And thank you for whoever is listening in the ethers and the now moment. Thank you for being here with us. And much love to all. Bye.